Over the course of this event, we've had plenty of conversations about how the world is changing, how the way we interact with our customers was already undergoing significant transformation, and then underwent even more once COVID-19 hit, and it changed the way we thought about customer contact and the relationship we have with our customers. But while that can be challenging for a lot of organizations, I don't want it to be viewed as a pure burden, or to suggest that we're powerless and we just kind of have to go with the flow and adapt to whatever's thrown in front of us. The simple reality is that many organizations have already found themselves on the cutting edge of these digital and AI transformations. And more importantly, they have the results to show for it. One of those organizations is West Community Credit Union, which has deployed AI technology to elevate the customer experience. In the process, they've learned some valuable lessons, and they've uncovered even unexpected opportunities that they didn't even plan for. And that's what we're going to be discussing today, how they've proven it can work and set themselves on the right direction to create even more customer centricity and even more positive transformation moving forward. So representing WCCU today will be Jason Peach, and I want to give him the chance to introduce himself right now. So Jason, how's everything going?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Justin. How are you guys? I'm coming from St. Louis, Missouri, West Community Credit Union. We've got branches here in St. Louis and in Columbia, Missouri, where the University of Missouri-Columbia is located. And I serve as the president and CEO of the organization. And, we're in interesting times. And so it's great to be with you and have a normal conversation about the future.
And Jason, thrilled to have you here. You actually did my job a little bit for me because you spoiled our second guest here, and that's going to be Justin from Capacity. Now, Capacity works directly with WCCU as a technology provider, but they also work with many other organizations. So certainly Justin's going to be here to share kind of how they've helped Jason and his team, and also broadly what they're seeing throughout the market. So Justin, how's everything going on your end?
Everything's going great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Justin Schmidt. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Capacity, also coming to you from St. Louis. And very happy to join the conversation and always interested in what Jason has to say. So this should be good.
Great. Well, given that setup, no more time for intro. Let's dive right into our discussion for today. Now, Jason, I want to start with you, getting at the very high level. Essentially, what was the tipping point? What was the driver that made your organization say, you know what, we need to start to invest in AI? I know that there's a lot of talk out there between things you can do. There's just the fact that it's such a buzzword. There's a lot of incentives a lot of organizations feel to actually go out and invest in AI solutions. But I want to know what your mindset was, and then how you communicated that mindset to the rest of your team and got the buy-in.
Sure. Well, Brian, one thing we do is we don't go out and just look for technology. We don't build systems and try to find a problem. So our strategic planning looks at the outside world, what are our needs, and then we try to go find solutions. And of course, as you know, the world's changing where technology is becoming more and more a part of the tools we use to create solutions. So our tipping point in this area is that more and more of the way that we can deliver solutions and understand what our members need. We're a credit union, so we're a financial cooperative, so our customers are member owners, so we're very member-centric. And so we're trying to deliver what they need as our member owners. We want to acquire them and we want to keep them. And so to do that in this world today, we need to have better intelligence about what their issues are, what they're searching for, and we need to meet them where they want to be. And so for us, the tipping point was looking at our busiest branch, which is actually our website, and then saying, how do we create a great experience for our members who visit the website, and actually our potential members, everybody that visits who's not currently a customer. We want to make sure it's a great experience like they'd see in person, so that they get what they need and become a member of the credit union. And so it just made sense when we said we need a technology that basically creates a better experience when people visit our website, and they can replicate that, what they would get in person at a branch.
So I think there's two great things you said there. First and foremost, that you're looking for the problem you want to solve or the opportunity you want to uncover, not the technology you need to buy. And then once you figure out what you're trying to do, then you find the right technology. The other great thing you said there was you were focusing on the idea of the customer experience and making that better, not just necessarily chasing some specific cost-cutting or call deflection trend. That said, Justin, not everyone is as inherently customer-centric as it sounds like Jason's team is. Some people are chasing the technology, or they are chasing very specific efficiency benefits or cost savings. So from your perspective, what are maybe some of the other mindsets that are out there that are driving investment? And are there any like advantages or disadvantages to that approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from our perspective, the savviest customers are ones that are coming to this from a place of looking to solve a specific problem or capture a specific opportunity. Now, across industries and across teams and use cases, even within a single organization, the stakeholders could be different, but a lot of the fears or trepidation going into it is the same. So, are people afraid of jobs being replaced? Is it misguided fear about general AI taking over the world? Or is it something as simple as bad data leading, automated workflow getting bad data is going to lead to bad outcomes? I think in terms of mindset, most of these concerns are simply assuaged by clear planning and goals. And when you have clear goals and a good plan, buy-in is a lot easier. And furthermore, and this is a point I always try to make to people when they're looking at a technology solution after they've identified their problem or their opportunity, is to keep in mind how unit economics scale. So here's a great example of this. So if I save 60 people 10 minutes a time, that's going to be a lot less impactful for the individual people than if I were to save 20 people 30 minutes each, right? So in a world where you're deploying, say, machine learning and artificial intelligence to optimize a robotic manufacturing process like a Tesla plant, those tiny little increments matter. In something like customer care, you're looking at potentially enabling agents to spend more time, more valuable time with customers, create that more meaningful experience, et cetera, et cetera. So as long as you go into it with clear expectations and planning, and then also properly map out what it is you're trying to get and how you're going to measure that investment, I think that there is really no wrong mindset so long as you have those parameters in place.
Makes perfect sense. Now, Jason, speaking of kind of going in with that a mindset of what you're trying to achieve, whatever it may be, whether it is customer centricity, whether it is improving the agent experience, cutting costs, however you're doing it, you certainly had some goals. And so I want to explore with you first and foremost, did you achieve your goals with the investment? Like, what were those immediate results look like in comparison to your idea of improving the customer experience? And then perhaps more importantly, as I alluded to in my intro, what were maybe some second order impacts or some unexpected benefits that you saw that you weren't anticipating, but you're certainly thankful that you were able to enjoy?
Yeah, so the first two direct ways we were going to measure success were lined up with the reason we first implemented it. In terms of the experience for our members and potential members, we wanted them to be able to self-service and access the information they needed because they chose to come to us to our website branch. They didn't choose to pick up the phone. They didn't choose to walk into a branch. This was their choice, and we want to make sure they don't get penalized for that. So basically, originally we turned the chatbot interface on, and AI started to work and learn what people were asking. We get feedback from the people interacting with it on the website, whether they found what they wanted to or not. And about 50% of the time, they were able to get what they needed. That's not where we wanted it to be, but we knew it would be, some number that needed to go up once we flipped the switch, because we were starting at nothing before that. And then, over the last couple of years, we've been able to move that up to above 84%, which is fantastic. We're always changing content on the website and trying to do new things, and it's actually directing us on how to organize it, where to place it, what to emphasize, as we learn. And AI learns what people want to get to. So that's a big lift in terms of the quality of the experience. The other side of it is the other more qualitative result is we've learned how our members think better, how consumers think as they're coming to look for information and the words they use. So take a simple example. We might have instructions about how to endorse the back of a check for remote deposit, mobile deposit. Consumers may not use the term endorse. So in a simple keyword search, the only way they would have found getting to that term would be endorse, because that's how the language we used. they would not find it. So we actually, through the AI and the chatbot, learned that they were asking us different kinds of ways to say that word. They just said, how do I sign the back of the check? So we had to adapt it and direct them better. And we couldn't have done that with a simple, search toolbar at the bottom of the page. So those were our two primary effects. In terms of the secondary effects, if members can get what they need, if we can go from 50 to 84% of people visiting our website getting what they need, then what we would expect and what we've seen is that people do not then end up having to pick up the phone to find out the answer they could not get on the website. So we found our costs for call center overflow, so our volumes have changed and have led to less cost incurring in our call center. And we believe there's a correlation to what's occurring during the same time frame with people getting better responses on the website.
So a lot of great benefits there. I think direct impacts to the experience, learning about your customers. And in a moment, I want to explore some of how you've kind of capitalized on those benefits. But before we get there, Justin, Jason admitted that some of those were unexpected benefits or they didn't play out exactly as they anticipated. So from your perspective, are these freak occurrences or are these things that you see across the industry? And if so, what strategically perhaps can organizations do to capitalize on these benefits, prepare for the fact that you're going to learn more about what your customers want? You're going to identify all these pain points and efficiency opportunities. And so how can you say, I'm not just going to get the knowledge, but I'm actually going to use that knowledge to create better experiences?
Yeah, that's a good question. First off, it's extremely common. And I think the number one recommendation that I've heard people on our team, either it's solutions consultants or our customer care function, or even just in a marketing perspective, is to always make sure you're collecting feedback from all the stakeholders involved in whatever the rollout is, because you end up finding out things you normally wouldn't have otherwise. So if you're collecting that feedback and documenting it, you can double click on the findings that have the sort of most potential to realize those second order benefits. For example, as Jason said, we've seen customers use data from the chatbot to inform content strategy. But here's another interesting one, a little outside the realm of customer support, but you'll see, you'll follow my logic here, is that internal teams would make changes to how they're onboarding employees based on the questions most asked to a chatbot during the first, 90 days of employment or whatever, right? So, we need to train people more on this and less on that. And these are the kind of things that as you roll out these solutions, you're not going to know unless you're really keeping tabs on the feedback from all stakeholders involved. So I think the strategic shift that organizations have to make when you start adopting more of this digital first and artificial intelligence driven mindset is that the gains tend to cascade throughout the org and sort of downstream, and you just need to be listening for that and be ready to implement the feedback and proposed ideas that come from that. But again, you're not going to hear any of that if you're not listening. So that's always my number one thing to people is just if you have all the goals set out and you have the stakeholders identified, you can follow up with the stakeholders after rollout, and that's when you achieve this sort of second order kind of benefits beyond what you originally purchased for.
And I love that approach, Justin, because I think that one of the things when we often have the conversation about buy-in, usually it's someone at the manager, director, VP level saying, how can I get the C-level on board? How can I get their buy-in? And don't get me wrong, they're the ones signing the checks. They're certainly important here. That said, I also think when you're looking at new technology, particularly that affects the customer engagement experience, you also want to get buy-in from the front line. Knowing what they're going through, knowing how their work life has changed as a result of bots is going to go a long way in determining how you can best perform, how you can, like you said, improve training or improve onboarding. Mm-hmm. And so really making sure that buy-in is a two-way street, that yes, you need the guy who signs the checks, but you also want the people who are actually using the technology as well.
Correct.
Now, Jason, speaking of kind of the intelligence component, so I think there's two real facets to what you can learn here. One is just, I want to ask you straight up, are people satisfied with the bot experience? So have your customers been appreciative of what you've changed? Have they liked the transformation? Has it worked for them? And then secondly, not only are they pro or con on the bot itself, but by learning how they use it, what they're responding to, how have you been able to use that information to improve your experience and perhaps even improve other facets like engagement rates or sign-up rates or make your messaging clearer for the audience?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the ways we can correlate satisfaction engagement is we measure net promoter score by channel, and so digital channels and then physical channels in various transactions. What we've seen is, I think anybody could be pretty proud of like a 78% net promoter score. But what we've seen is we've actually driven that up to close to 85% the last couple of years. And again, correlating to as we've used this tool, we've seen some of the best growth where it needed to improve was in our digital experiences with our members. So we believe that this is helping shape our brand and image in that experience, and certainly can deserve some credit and correlation to that result. We also get specific feedback. So we can see the interactions of every interaction a person has on the website. And it is very common for people, and I'm not even sure if they realize they're talking to a chatbot sometimes, because they'll actually be way too polite. They'll get their answer and they'll say, "Oh, thank you, have a good day." I mean, they have to type this. So, it tells us as we see those things that the experience was pretty strong and positive. And then what we do is our marketing vice president and her team review all of the feedback and the dialogue that occurs. And she brings that into our strategic planning and says, "This is what I'm seeing. These are, so maybe here's something that people keep asking. They keep wondering whether we have ATMs in a certain part of town, or, what are our fees in a certain area?" And then we can take that and go, okay, the way we educate our members, onboard our members, needs to improve. Maybe we need a better way to get this information in front of them. So I think those are just some real quick examples of ongoing reaction and response to what we're seeing. It's not a once a year, get some data and let's do some things. It's month in and month out that we're getting this data. And so sometimes it feels more incremental, but it really is, if you add it up, it's as strategic as anything you would do once a year. But it's just, we're just doing it consistently. And I think that creates a lot of agility for us as well.
Yeah, I think, and I want to expand on that for a second, but I just want to comment there that really what you're hitting on is data should serve two purposes, right? One should be to just improve the quality of the interaction, to make sure that whether a customer is chatting with a bot or speaking to an agent, that they're getting more out of that interaction. But the other side is designing a better experience overall. Like you said, onboarding them better, using different language, offering kind of different marketing opportunities at the right time versus the wrong time so that they don't feel bombarded. These are all areas where you can take customer intelligence from interactions and use that to totally redesign your entire journey to create more value. And if you're not doing both, if you're not improving interactions and journeys, you're certainly missing the mark there. Now, as for the agility point, when you and I spoke prior to today's webinar, you really wanted to hammer home the importance of where you see AI giving you the ability to scale. And I think that ties so nicely into the theme for this event, because it's not just AI and digital engagement, it's modernizing service experiences. We've all seen what's happened over the past few months where resources became tighter, environments changed. We needed to transform quickly, and so scalability and continuity have really come to the forefront. So when you look at ways that AI is helping you scale, what are you focusing on? What are some of the opportunities you've seen right there?
Yeah, so, for an organization our size, we might have multiple departments of 4 people, 6 people, 8 people. So not 100-person, 200-person areas that are, consolidated into various departments. And so our opportunity is for us to grow quickly and efficiently and competitively. Again, I think I shared with you, JP Morgan Chase spends in 2 hours as much on technology as we spend an entire year. So, when you have that kind of just real difference in scale and resources, for us to compete and survive and remain relevant to our members, we need to find a way to do that with a complement of technology in those business plans. And I'll tell you that before AI and before this technology, this was just not a tool for us to go to and say, how does this fit into our plans? So we don't have to keep throwing bodies at every thing that we need to do. And whereas we grow, we can basically, double in size without doubling our workforce. And the way that we do that is every problem we're trying to solve, which is, hey, we're doubling in size. How do we not double our workforce? We now have a way to go and look at that use case. We can look at processes where pieces of those processes can automate and be used in conjunction with our human beings that allow us to basically be more efficient and scale. So, it's now embedded in our culture of, as we look at strategy and what we're doing, we're going to say, how does our workforce do their best work? And, because frankly, there's a real value in what our workforce brings, our differentiator to the table. But how do we help use the technology to not only be efficient, but help them do a better job? And that's kind of now our mindset, and it's available to us now.
So over the course of this discussion, we've hit on so many benefits between better customer interactions, better journey orchestration, capturing all kinds of data, using that data to better train and onboard our agents. The list goes on. But so Justin, I'd imagine that we have listeners right now, viewers right now, who are really getting excited about the opportunity to seize these benefits. And they want to say, where can I sign up? How can I make this happen? And I'm sure you're willing to help them, but I also know that there is some value in an incremental approach, and that, just trying to get every benefit at once may not work. Even Jason, he kind of took a progressive approach here. So when you look at maybe a roadmap for making the most of AI investments, what are some recommendations you would give to our audience?
Yeah, great question. I think the most important step in any investment in new technology, but especially artificial intelligence, is setting the right expectations and then also fully diagramming and understanding the system and process that you are going to be injecting this technology into, right? So at a very simple level, you could have a chatbot that helps answer questions. At a more advanced level, you could have a chatbot that takes in user data, passes it off to another system, that system, CRM, whatever it is, does whatever processing on it, sends it back to the chatbot then sends it back to the user, right? And that's just in a two-stop automation train. You could have some processes where data and interaction go through 15 different tools and 4 different departments before it comes out the other end. So map everything out and tackle where you're going to see the gains first, where you're going to solve that initial problem or capture that initial opportunity we talked about earlier, and then work with your vendor and your teams to identify where you can expand it into. Typically with AI, there's 3 places where it sort of works best, or 3 things you have to keep in mind in order for it to work its best. The first is what we call the 1-second rule. So if a human can do it in about 1 second or a couple seconds, this is a good task for automation. Looking at a part and saying whether or not it's defective. Customer asks about what's your hours during COVID-19, you can provide an answer. The second is this, what we call is the fuzzy cell rule. And this is something to keep in mind. If you've got a giant process that ultimately leads to one sort of KPI, you're exposing yourself to a lot of risk trying to get AI to automate and manage everything that leads up to that KPI. You break it out into component parts, optimize towards those, deploy solutions and methodologies towards those, and you can get to the goal you're looking for. And then finally, it's really important to remember that artificial intelligence is data hungry. So the more data that you have to train a model, the better it's going to work. We're working with a Institute of Higher Learning here where we're helping develop not only a chatbot to answer student questions, but also to take that data along with course grades, attendance, etc., and try to model out potential churn rates of those students to alert the advisors to then step in and try to save the student from dropping out. That's going to be more important for higher ed these days than ever with the uncertainty they're facing. But my point remains that in the context of the larger system, there's little goals and little tools that connect all that together, and you have to have it mapped out and fully understood before you embark and before you grow with it.
So that's the perspective from the technology provider side. But Jason, as we wrap up here, I want to give you allow you to share what your recommendations are for the shopping process. People, whether it's because of this session, whether it's because of another session on the program, surely they've seen some opportunities to invest in AI technology, but you want to do it in a way that's going to be beneficial for the business. So having gone through a successful journey on your own part, what are some recommendations for shopping for the right technology? And then perhaps to expand upon that, what are you shopping for right now? What are some capabilities that you want to incorporate into your customer experience down the road?
Yeah, so, I think this is a common thing for at least the credit union business. is that we tend to we collaborate across credit unions as well. It's a big part of our culture internally, and it kind of as a cooperative moves across our space. So I would say that looking at other peers or other examples, for example, the higher learning institution that Justin referenced would be a great resource for other higher institutions to collaborate because they live in the same world and have similar experiences and problems. So, for financial institutions, I think, we could be a great resource in this example, but I also look out there and try to see who's working with who do people recommend. So word of mouth references, I think, are really important. There's a lot of folks doing a lot of things right now. And even in this example, a chatbot's not, a chatbot is not a chatbot. It's very different what's behind it. And I think also the organization behind it. For us, what got us involved with Capacity was their leadership, who we were introduced to. We had a geographical convenience to that, but basically understanding the people behind this. This doesn't work if it just gets dumped into our IT department's lap and then we just try to work with it. Really, the fact that we could collaborate with the folks who are AI experts, who really understand how the mystery that happens behind the curtain, with AI, as we learn things, if we were on our own, this would not be as effective. They can also help us learn what use cases should be there. So I'd say go and look for, as you talk to other organizations, how responsive that team, how engaged they're going to be with you, not just when you're getting ready to sign a contract, but whether they're going to stick with you the whole way through. Because we have several more use cases. You asked, what's next? I'll speak specifically to this. We're implementing a live chat feature now so that we can further improve helping folks get what they need before jumping to a channel they don't prefer. So if that's a channel they prefer, if they can't get it automatically through the chatbot, engage with a live chat before going to the phone or another method. We're going to turn this internally to ourselves and help our workforce utilize the AI and access our knowledge base in a more convenient manner and maybe a more efficient and productive manner. So again, because there's so many ways this technology can be used, I don't need 5 different companies to work with, which frankly is fantastic. So I think another thing you could do when you vet providers is how many use cases can they address? And then of course you have to prioritize, and we're doing it one step at a time and trying to, this is a process and a journey, but I think those are a few things to think about, because if you had to answer every use case, you had to have a different company to work with because they don't have the breadth or scope. That would, now in hindsight, now that we're in this, we've been living this for a few years, I'm glad we are where we are. Some of it was a little bit of luck, but now I can back into it and say, those are important things for anybody now starting the journey. These are some things to really consider.
And I want to thank both of you for some great insights throughout the discussion. Certainly, Jason, for sharing your story, your successes, your wins, your opportunities, and just the process you went through. And then, Justin, some great recommendations for looking at technology, but then, of course, looking at what more you can do to support the technology and making sure that it doesn't stop with finding the right solution, but instead the right solution is a springboard to a better customer experience. Now, what I also like there, Jason, that you brought up, everything you said really ties into what we've seen from our research. Our recent market study identifying that things like customer intelligence and improving efficiency are actually top objectives for AI. It's not just about solving problems, it's also about learning about your customers as well. And then, of course, it ties into a consumer survey we're about to launch, which is reflecting how increasingly comfortable customers are with digital channels and how they would like to not have to escalate away from starting in a chatbot to phone if they don't need to. So offering more opportunities for customers to be where they want to be, get the experience they want, and in the process, learn what they need, learn who you need to be as an organization. That's going to lead to better experiences. So I want to thank both of you again so much. I know that we're out of time for questions, but certainly the questions we did receive, Justin and Jason will be sure to respond.